Welcome, Spencer, to Metaladium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Full of Hell, this new album, Coagulated Bills, and obviously more things related to the metal world in general, or extreme music in general. So we start by asking, how has the band been during the last 3 years? Because Garden of Burning Apparitions was released in 2021, and now we have this new album.
Um, so yeah, it was just, I mean, I guess it was almost like having to restart the band because of COVID. So it's like we released Garden when the world was shut down, and then, it was just like having to get our footing back of like touring and then all this stuff. Like we never stopped recording or practicing and stuff, but like just getting back and getting used to touring and playing shows because it was such a huge time jump and like such a long period of time of us not being able to tour.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Garden of Burning Apparitions was released, well, I think in the middle of the pandemic. And now
Yeah.
we have two albums. So for these aspects, uh, how will you promote the next live shows? Perhaps you will focus on both albums, or perhaps this just in this new coagulated bliss.
Um, I mean, we've never really like when we've toured, we've never really like tried to lean too much into one album just because I feel like I mean, the audience would probably get mad of not hearing certain songs and stuff. So we try to like every set list try to balance it out and sometimes like stuff leans more heavily into one thing than the other. But I think we have a tour coming up with Dying Fetus that starts next week, and it's a pretty balanced, eclectic set list. Just because too, it's like we're going to be playing to like a very different crowd than what we might not necessarily be used to. So we're trying to like do an expansive set list of like every era of the band of like either more hardcore stuff, more experimental, more like grindy stuff, but a decent amount of new songs from this album.
Okay. Well, talking about now from this coagulated bliss, two things that captured my attention. The first one is that this album is not fast as the old ones. It's more heavy, more dense, a little more noise, a lot more noise here, dissonant noise especially. And also the second is, well, talking about especially for the composition. So how was the composition process for this coagulated bliss? Because as I mentioned, you have more dense noise. It's not like the usual full of hell album with a lot of speed, with a lot of craziness there.
Um, so a thing I've noticed as well is from playing live so much and all of us being in the band for 15 years at this point, like we've gotten a lot older. I'm 35 now, Dave's 30 now. Um, it's like it does get hard playing like fast so much all the time, and it's like you see like bands where they'll just like there of course is grindcore bands that are been playing for like 40 some years, but still they will like, and I'm not knocking them at all, but they'll use like triggers for the drums and stuff
Mm.
like that. And that's not part of our sound. Like we like being like pretty raw and pretty like you know true to what we sound like. And it just got to a point with writing this new record, I was like, I kind of want to write compositions where if we wanted to play a lot of these songs live, it would be much easier for us as musicians. Because even when we did Roadburn a couple years ago, where we played like three records all the way through, and it was like a task actually having to relearn some of the old stuff, like all of the songs off Weeping. I did not realize how like technical they were and how that they would come off in a live setting. So this record I would definitely kept in mind of being like keeping true to ourselves, but also writing songs in a way that would benefit more of being able to play live and not having to worry so much about being like, is it going to sound sloppy or not, or are we going to get too tired from playing playing these songs? That was like definitely in the back of my mind the whole time.
Okay, okay. The second thing that captured my attention for this album is the cover art, because I think this is the first time we have a full of hell cover art, more colorful, with more colors, because usually you lean down to the black and white, and the scales of these colors. So what did you decide to change? Well, I think the complete concept of the cover art for a full of hell album.
So I think it was a situation too. It goes back to the music. It's like we were writing music, the way we were writing music felt different. So we wanted the cover art to reflect how the songs felt different. So it's almost like planting the seeds of like a new era where it's like, yeah, we're still full of hell, but we're trying to expand ourselves and trying to like differentiate a little bit from past releases and stuff. So people will hear this and people have already commented being like, "Oh, these songs like you said sound different compared to other stuff." So we wanted the cover art to reflect that.
Okay. Other detail that captured also another detail that captured my attention is that where previously you were working with Relapse Records, one of the big labels around the world, and now for this new album, Coagulated Bliss, you decide to change with closed casket activities. So how was the transition to work first with a big label and now to work with Closed Casket Records, a small or medium label in the metal world?
I think Closed Casket is starting to leave like footprints of like they're very much more based in hardcore, but he's trying to expand his record label to maybe like fill a void left by like a label like Hydra Head of like having metal releases, experimental releases, hardcore releases, like punk releases, shoegaze, whatever. And working with Relapse was cool because we had always worked with like way smaller, like not smaller, but more independent labels like Profound Lore. And we wanted to try to be like, hey, let's actually try to see how we feel on like one of these big machine labels, you know? And we did it and it was a good experience, but there was also aspects too because we're so hands-on with the band in every aspect, whether it be booking stuff, making like, you know, behind the scenes decisions and stuff like that. It felt way more comfortable to go step back with a smaller label where it's like we have direct lines of communication. There's one or two people handling stuff instead of like a lot of bureaucratic stuff with a bigger label of being like, well, you got to talk to this person to talk to this person. This person handles this department. This person handles this department. It's way more comfortable for us to have our fingers in every aspect, whether it be the promotion, the pressing, the PR, the, you know, how it's rolled out, all that stuff. Like we like the DIY aspect way more.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, talking about now, especially for the labels, it's a curious thing that you mentioned is that your more successful album, Trumpet the Ecstasy, was released through Profound Love Records. Since there,
Mm-hmm.
the band will very well know around extreme circles, extreme scene. So now you are one of the well, you have well, you have a great career with the all albums. So how do you see this? I think a little very fast growing compared with a lot of bands that happened since the 90s or the beginnings of 2000s that has to be six, seven, or eight albums to be successful. So how do you see this very fast groupment in the career of Full of Hell?
In like people from the outside perspective might see it as fast growth, but like it still is very taxing on us because, like I said, we still like to keep everything very personable with how we do it. So, I mean, it was kind of a surprise to like how much trumpeting took off because yet again, it was another leap in our songwriting and like good like instrument playing and musicianship and all this stuff. And I was kind of nervous about that release because it was a big jump forward from our more like hardcore oriented stuff. But I feel like it's more of a from the behind the scenes. It feels more of steady growth, and I would prefer that than to be some sort of like hype band that gets all this stuff handed to them immediately. It's like, I mean, we still work very hard. Dylan and I and Justin, who does Closed Casket, we work very hard and very closely on every aspect of the band almost every single day. Like we do have jobs outside of music, but still doing Full of Hell is a full-time job. And I also too like the way that we conduct ourselves. I like looking back at like older bands like Melvins or Neurosis or Converge and stuff like that, where it's like they might not be the biggest bands in the world, but they had a steady, consistent career. And I'd rather have that longevity than a like temporary pop in popularity.
Mm, okay, okay. Okay, so talking about now about the promotion of this new album, what kind of plans do you have for to promote this album? Perhaps you will embark on more tours after the Dying Fetus tour, or perhaps you will come to Latin America. Who knows? What kind of plans do you have?
I mean, so where are you located at?
Well, online Latin America in general here in Peru, but the website is in Peru, Mexico, and Colombia.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, before COVID, we had done an entire South American tour. It was like, I think we did Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and I can't remember. There was one or two more countries, and I like apologize that I forget which ones they are. But I mean, right now we wanted to focus on other parts of the world and trying to play like kind of my more diverse festivals and stuff. So it's like we do this Dying Fetus tour, and then we play Sound and Fury in California, which is a predominantly hardcore festival. Then after that, we're doing Furnace Fest, which is more of like metalcore, classic, like, hardcore type festival. And then we're doing New England Metal Fest. And in between that, we're doing Australia and Southeast Asia. So we're trying to like diversify the types of crowds we play to and try to go back to areas that we've not been in years. I think the last time the band had been to Australia and Southeast Asia was like 2017. So it's been quite a while. Um, I mean, for next year, like we're even taking a break from like doing European stuff just because we've done Europe so many times. So next, like we already got a couple other tours lined up for the rest of the year after all of these festivals, but we're starting to plan out next year, and we definitely have been in communications about doing Mexico, which we've not. I mean, the last time we toured Mexico was when Trumpeting Ecstasy came out, and doing more Latin America, Central, South America tours and going back to Europe and stuff. So we're trying to just like right now focus on stuff of playing to new crowds and coming back to like different areas we haven't played in a while. Because even the Dying Fetus tour is playing like a bunch of Canadian towns that we haven't played since like 2014. And so we're just trying to like put our fingers in every area, let people know, remind people we're still around, kind of thing, play to new people, and then go back to countries and tours that we've loved doing throughout the years.
Okay, nice, nice, nice to hear. Well, talking about, especially for, no, as I mentioned, talking about other kind of things is into the extreme music. As you can see, the grindcore since the beginning drinks with the noise aspects. Well, a noise that is came from Japan, from Germany, these kind of aspects in the 70s and 80s. So for
Yeah.
you, how was the real conception that the grindcore has since the beginning? For me, is that grindcore mix the hardcore and noise and some parts of with the metal. So, but you, how was the real conception of the grindcore?
So, like, are you saying as in general or for us
Yes, no,
personally?
in general, yeah.
Like, I mean, I obviously think that grindcore is more like punk and hardcore adjacent, and that's like I consider Full of Hell a hardcore band. So it's like I don't necessarily consider us a grindcore band, but I do consider us more of the lineage of like stuff that influence like because influence grindcore, because it's like I've even talked about, it's like in other interviews, it's like this record I'm like very inspired by a band like Dinosaur Jr., who's like an indie rock band. But
Mm.
if you know anything about extreme music, you know that Jay Mascis was in this band called Deep Wound, who was a fast hardcore band, but they're also credited of being one of the first bands ever to play blast beats. So it's like I like that lineage of like hardcore, like of like Siege and Deep Wound and stuff like that, and relating that to grindcore. And then like with the noise aspects, it's like there's always been noise aspects that are related more less more like more to the hardcore aspect as well than like the metal aspect of grindcore, because there's like our big influence to us is this band called Man is the Bastard, who is, you know, an original power violence band, and I feel like power violence mainly breaks the line between hardcore and grindcore, if that makes sense.
Mm, okay, okay. Well, all the detail about the music in general, as you can see. Well, especially for the grindcore, more exactly. As you can see, usually this kind of music has a duration for one song for 1 minute, 2 minutes, or perhaps 30 seconds, or like or one song from Nipple Dead. So 3 seconds and just a song. So this kind of stuff is usually the common denominator for the grindcore songs are very short songs. But I think just few bands play more than 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or an hour. So for
Mm-hmm.
you, what are the reasons always the grindcore or this kind of music has short songs? Why don't you didn't perhaps say, hey, we will create an album for 60 minutes? I don't know, like a progressive metal band. Who knows?
I mean, I feel like too, it's like everyone now especially has a short attention span, you know, like playing seeing stuff live, and it's like I'm even guilty of that, because it's like, you know, I see a band live and it's like they play for an hour, and unless it's like a drone band like Sun or something, I'm like, okay, like this feels like a little too much. Like seeing a hardcore band for an hour is like a task. And I mean, I like the aspect in the energy of like, you know, quick succession, sounding crazy. I mean, there's like, you know, with like either like noisecore, like a band like Sissy Spacek or something, where it's like, you know, they play for 5 minutes, but it's just like noise grind, where it's just like hit after hit after hit after hit. And like I find that way more exciting than, like I said, watching some hardcore band play for like an hour, because it just becomes tedious. It's like, I mean, even still to us, I think the longest set we've ever played is 35 minutes. And it's just like us as musicians, it's like it gets tiring, and it even feels like I have to look at it as a musician, looking at it from like an audience perspective of being like, I wouldn't want to see my own band for like an hour. Like, that's why I'm like, I want to get it in and out, make it exciting, and make people want more.
Okay, okay. And as you are saying that this new album start new things in the career of Fuel of Hate for the career, especially for the cover art, and also the sounds are more dense, are more heavy, not fast as usually. So perhaps with this new approach on the music of your band, perhaps you will do this kind of more progressive stuff, more long songs. Who knows?
I mean, I don't think, in like as a musician, like yes, there's the song on the record that's like there's a 7 minute long song, but that's taking influence from a band like Harvey Milk or Conate, like slower bands, but they're still extreme. But me as a musician and a songwriter, like I don't see how we could, even if the song is less like blast beats and fast, like it's still punk and hardcore oriented. So it's still like anything over a minute and a half feels like, oh, this feels like it's dragging. So
Mm,
it's like, I think as a musician, because it's like, even with the more like, we're definitely more influenced by, like, on this record, by noise rock stuff, grungy stuff. You still look at bands like Dinosaur Jr. or Husker Du or something, and yeah, they're writing more catchy songs, but the songs are still only a minute and a half long. And I think that all comes from the mindset of growing up in punk and hardcore.
okay, okay. Well, we're very close to this interview, Spence. For this aspect, so what kind of how do you see now the well, some people think I will do a little background for this. So as you can see now in the world are releasing a lot of music. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
impossible to get attention for all. You have your site on the grindcore scene, on the extreme metal scene, because all people know Full of Hell. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's good for you. But for the new bands, it's very difficult because at the end of the week, each week, especially for the bank and Fridays, you can see a lot of releases 50, 60, 100 of releases, videos, I don't know, a lot of music. So some people think that this overpopulating music brings good is healthy for the scene because you can see a lot of new music, a lot of new bands. But for the other side, other music, all well-known musicians thinks that this is too saturated because you don't get attention. The music industry is more streamings. It's not like the 80s or 90s when you buy a CD and hear completely just one, two songs and then change the artist. So for you, how do you see this aspect about these overpopulated bands and productions in the music industry in general, especially into the metal scene or extreme music?
I think, like, it's very weird seeing this stuff, because it's like, yet again, you said it seems like there are a lot of bands, but it's like a lot of the bands, it's like they're like almost one and done. And it's like there's are so many bands where it's like they get lost in the shuffle, and they might not necessarily deserve to get overlooked compared to some of these other bands, where I feel like, going back to like bigger labels and stuff, and this isn't a shot at Relapse at all, because it's like I said, I liked working with Relapse, but it is weird seeing now it's like these huge labels, seeing that maybe like one or two death metal bands or hardcore bands got successful, and it almost feels like at this point right now that they're trying to turn hardcore or death metal into like the next Nirvana, of being like, you see like Nirvana is like, they got popular, we have to sign up every grunge band, where it's now these big labels are like, this one death metal band got popular, let's sign every single death metal band, let's sign every single hardcore band. And it's like, I feel like that is detrimental, because it's like these bands aren't actually growing, as we talked about before. It's like these bands aren't actually, they're being pushed to the forefront without a lot of work to it. And I think, like, that's the thing that needs to come back, is like bands need to naturally grow compared to just being pushed to the forefront, because it is going to make stuff stagnant, it's going to overpopulate stuff, like stuff's going to get lost in the shuffle. And it's like, I mean, it's just like, it's everything is a double-edged sword, because it's like, yeah, there might be too many bands, but like I said, there's just so much stuff that is like forced down your throat that's not going to be remembered in like 1 or 2 years. And the bands that should be remembered are going to get pushed to the back burner. But if they're smart enough, they'll use that to their advantage, similar what we did, and of just trying to slowly grow instead of like exponentially grow right out the gates.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Well, thanks for this. Thanks for this information. And well, Spence, the sad times arrived at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me.
Yeah.
Love this new album. Congratulations on this new coagulated bliss. Huge, oh, interesting name, coagulated. So for the, so perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metallarium followers?
Yeah, I mean, we love playing for you guys. It's harder for us to get down there, just because, it's way less people to deal with in the like music industry aspect than compared to US or in Europe, but like we love playing for you guys and we hope to come down back down there very soon.